Here at ERG, we've obviously care about the impact of the environment on human health. And I think traditionally it's been thought of in quite a linear way. So you have a pollutant released from a source. So for example, persistent organic pollutants from vehicle exhausts. It enters the air, being a pathway, and then the population inhales it, and the person being the receptor. But our thinking has started to evolve, and this isn't new, I should say. So it's not necessarily new, but it has been around for a while as a concept. But we've started to think of things in a more complex and interconnected way. So really acknowledging the fact that environment, health, and animals are all interconnected. And this is multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary. And so just taking this example, you could see how persistent organic pollutants that are released to the atmosphere are not only a direct issue for the population, but they could be transported to agricultural land, where they deposit in the soil and affect the microbial community or plants. This could, of course, affect crop yield, crop quality. It could even lead to bioaccumulation in the food chain, and these would all ultimately affect human health as well. So there's these interconnected pathways that are multi-sectoral that need a multidisciplinary approach to tackle them. So this is called One Health. As I've already mentioned, it's about this nexus, or triangle, if you like, of environment, humans, and animals. And it's easy to see that if you would consider each of these sectors, so water, health, food, energy, environment, in isolation, they're all large sectors with their own issues. But when you connect them all up, you can start to tackle larger challenges for health, such as AMR, so antimicrobial resistance, or food security. And this is a new framework that's been applied in the World Health Organization, the Centre for Disease Control over in the States. It's something that's considered at community to global levels of organization. And so just as an example, one of the sort of key areas where this framework for thinking is applied is zoonosis, or zoonotic disease. So disease that is spread from animals to humans. And so you can see here, for example, with the environmental stressor of land use change, that can lead to a loss of biodiversity or a loss of food resources. That can lead to a decrease in wildlife immunity or an increase in pathogen shedding, and that can then lead to the spillover of zoonotic disease to humans. So recently, this has also been proposed as a framework to think about chemical pollution as well, because clearly this is another environmental stressor that can affect the integrity of the environment and that important corner of that triangle. And so in this instance, you can see, similar to how I sort of started at the beginning, pollutants such as POPs are released to the environment. They accumulate in soils and water or air, and then they can accumulate in animal products. We ingest animal products, and that leads to human exposure as well. So environmental stresses are the key part there when we consider the environment in this triangle. And environmental stresses can also be considered as planetary boundaries. So these are limits within which it's safe to operate for humanity. Now, these different boundaries include things like climate change, ocean acidification, freshwater, but there's also a sector known as novel entities. And I think this quote particularly is good at capturing what is meant by this particular limit that we should operate safely within. So you can see it describes new substances, new forms of existing substances, and modified life forms, which includes chemicals, other types of engineered materials, or organisms not previously known to the Earth system, which are mobilized, naturally occurring elements which are mobilized by anthropogenic activities. So this is a real sort of key environmental stressor that we should be considering when we think about planetary health and One Health. So just to think of some things within this novel entities bracket, and just to really highlight how it links to human health. Diseases caused by chemical pollution have been estimated to be responsible for 9 million premature deaths in 2015. So that's 3 more from HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria together. It's also believed that we are now almost operating outside of this safe space for novel entities, which includes the chemicals and plastics. And also now I think we should even be considering biological pollution as well, as you'll hear from Professor Matt Fisher. So thinking of fungi as a pollution, because it releases allergens, it impacts the food chain, and it can lead to mycotoxins in food and fungal disease in humans. Now, of course, in all of these areas, what's really key is monitoring. So early monitoring systems where we can really start to evaluate issues for the future or how we're actually tackling current issues.